The Wildcats blew by Eastern New Mexico up in Blackwater draw. Now they're headed home for a showdown with Angelo State.
Yeah, and in spirit of the World Series, we've got the Claw, Wildcats, and the Antlers, Rams. Claw and Antlers today on The Chris Thomsen Show. Welcome to Week 9 of the Chris Thomsen Show. Grant Boone, along with Senior Broadcast Major Brandon Tripp and the head football coach at ACU, Chris Thomsen. Coach, 53-14, your team, a winner last week at Eastern New Mexico. The 50th win now as you continue in your 6th season of coaching. That's third all-time in terms of career victories by an ACU head coach. I know in some ways it's just a number, but what does that number mean to you?
I really hadn't even thought about it till you brought it up. I mean, to me, it's just symbolic of a lot of hard work on our, coaching staff, great commitment from our administration and then the players down through the years like Jarrell Badon and Sam Collins, Nathan Young. Just I could go on down the list, and then the current guys now. Just total team effort from the administration all the way to the players and everybody in between. And just looking back, there's been some special wins, and it's an exciting time.
Coach, we talked about it last week. Playing Eastern New Mexico is always a weird thing. There was a weird game this last weekend, 35-mile-an-hour gusts. Talk about what it was like to coach in that game.
It was crazy. I've never experienced anything like that. We played one game at Commerce the year that I played here in '93 that there was a similar wind, and it was a lot colder, but I don't think the wind was quite that strong. We actually won that day as well as Coach Strader was the head coach, Rex Lamberti was the quarterback, and there was a really stiff wind that day, but I think Eastern this past weekend was worse. But overall, I thought our guys did a good job of handling that. And, if you're going to win in the playoffs in Division II, you got to deal with some weather. So I think it was a good preparation for us. Hopefully we get to do that.
And then today, a 2 o'clock kickoff here just in about 3 hours against your nearest neighbor in the Lone Star Conference, ACU, Angelo State. Whenever those two teams get together, as they say, the proverbial line about you throw the records out, this is a great rivalry, and you've been a part of it on a couple of different ends, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. As a player, we went over there in '93, and I think that was the week before that Commerce game that I just alluded to. But we went over there. There was a lot of hype around that game. I think we were 5-1 or 6-1, and they were undefeated, and they got after us pretty good that night. And that was my first experience with the rivalry. And then, coaching several years in it, it's tough. You walk into the Angelo Clinic every summer, and you go down there, and there's Mike Martin and Coach Vandergriff and Jim Hess, and they're harassing you about Wally Bullington and Ted Sitton and, taking shots at them. And that old rivalry goes back, way back, and even before that. But got a lot of respect for that rivalry, and I look forward to playing those guys today.
Okay, that will be 2 o'clock today, that kickoff, and we'll talk more about ACU and Angelo State momentarily. But when we come back, Brandon will have highlights from that 53-14 victory over Eastern New Mexico last Saturday. Thanks for watching. This is The Chris Thomsen Show. Welcome back to The Chris Thomsen Show. ACU went to 8-0 last Saturday night with a 53-14 victory over Eastern New Mexico. With a look at the highlights, here's Brandon.
The Wildcats were on the road in Blackwater Draw, a place where weird things happen. Last weekend, it was the wind. Eastern New Mexico on their first drive. Wesley Wood finds star wideout Jesse Poku, who takes it 20 yards, and that would be one of the few bright spots on the day for the Greyhounds. ACU forces a punt, and later in the drive, because of the wind, the Greyhounds decide to quick kick it to keep it out of the wind, something Eastern New Mexico did a half dozen times in the game. So ACU has the ball, and Mitchell Gale continued to light it up for the Wildcats despite a 35-mile-per-hour winds, and finds Taylor Gabriel open down the middle of the field. Later in the drive, Ryan Owens kicking for the injured Morgan Lineberry and nails this 53-yard field goal with the wind at his back. ACU goes up 3-0 and never looked back. Next Eastern possession ends in a 3-and-out thanks to this excellent pressure from the ACU defense. Wildcats back on the move, and Gale finds Daryl Cantu Harkless on the screen. 34 yards later, the Greyhounds finally drag him down. Later in the drive, it's 3rd and goal, and ACU calls upon Emery Dudensing. The Hammer takes it 2 yards into the end zone. Wildcats go up 10-0. Next Wildcat possession still in the first quarter, and it wasn't long as Mitchell Gale finds Edmund Gates on the screen, and Gates is gone. Blows by every Eastern defender for 50-yard touchdown. Gates would finish with his 4th consecutive 100 receiving game and 3 touchdowns. That would be a career high. Another quick kick from Eastern. Gale finds Dudensing again, this time on the 15-yard pass that Dudensing takes into the end zone, but an illegal block on the play nullifies the touchdown. Next play, the wind showing its effects when the ball sails on Mitchell Gale over the head of Kendrick Johnson. ACU would have to settle for another Ryan Owens field goal. Just before the end of the quarter and the end of the wind at their backs, Kendrick Johnson on the out route then turns it upfield, slipping and sliding through Eastern defenders. 47 yards for the score. ACU goes up 27-0, and that would conclude the quarter. Let's jump ahead to the end of the second quarter now. Wildcats up big 33-0, and Woods finds Tony Valenzuela for the big play on the screen pass. Valenzuela was one of the lone bright spots for the Greyhounds with 133 total yards on the day. The drive would end before the Greyhounds could score, though. ACU up at halftime, 33-0. To the beginning of the fourth quarter, backups in for ACU, and Josh Morgan loses the football. It falls into the hands of safety Curtis Jackson, who takes it 15 yards the other way for the Eastern touchdown, but it was not near enough. Wildcats win 53-14.
So a 53-14 victory, Coach, for your team over Eastern New Mexico. This was a team that had racked up some impressive offensive numbers, as they've done the last couple of years throwing the football. But rarely does the coin toss have such a dramatic impact on a game, and certainly the beginning of the game. You guys won the toss, and you instructed your team to take the wind. All the previous times you've won the toss this year, you've said defer to the second half, but you chose to take the wind at your back.
Yeah, the wind was such a significant factor on Saturday, and felt like if we could get it early and play, hopefully play the game on half the field, their half of the field, felt like we could try to mount a lead. And what surprised me is they come out the first drive and just take it right into the wind and go right down the field on us. Fortunately, our defense held, but kind of settled in and started getting the field position advantage, and it really helped us early.
Well, they did pick up a couple of first downs, and then they went to the quick kick, and Wesley Wood, their quarterback, had the first of his 6 quick kicks, kicking into the wind, but lining up with all of the offensive personnel on the field, so you had to respect at least the idea that they might go for it, right?
Yeah, some of those were 4th and 4, 4th and 5,
yeah.
And if you put a guy deep who's not a defender and you have a mishap in coverage, you could easily give up a first down. And the way the wind was blowing, it's almost why not go for it, And so we left our defense out there, and they did a good job with it, some 20 and 30-yard kicks, but we still had great field position.
Well, the decision, and again, it's a little bit of you've never made that call, have you?
Not to actually
to take
defend
the win.
a goal like
to
that.
defend a goal.
No, I haven't done that.
Yeah, because you have four decisions if you win the toss. You can defend a goal, you can choose to kick, you can choose to receive the kick, or defer to the second half. And so that proved to be a great decision because your team took a 27-0 lead after the first quarter. You scored with 1 second left for your 26th and 27th point of that first quarter. And Edmund Gates, after a very emotional week, and many people watching this show saw the local coverage about Edmund reuniting with his father after 18 years, all he does is go out and have a career-high day in which he caught 3 touchdown passes. You kind of predicted beforehand that you thought he would have a big day because he's handled everything else. So
yeah, he has. I mean, he's really been steady this year and handled just pretty much everything that's come to him. A lot of the attention from scouts and from media and stuff like that. He's done a great job and really handled that situation just as well.
So now Edmund Gates, who is number 1 in the Lone Star Conference with 10 touchdown receptions, has 24 in his career. He's tied for 3rd with the guy you played with, Angel Alvarez. And he went right past, in that game, he went right past the great Johnny Perkins.
Yeah, Johnny Perkins, what a big name. And then Angel Alvarez was a guy that actually transferred from TCU, who was a great player as well. And Rex was his quarterback. So, Edmund just continues to climb and do new things each week.
Well, Mitchell Gale, this was nothing new, throwing for 5 touchdowns. It's the 3rd time he's done it, 2nd straight week he's thrown for 5. That's 27 touchdowns he's thrown this year, still against just one interception. And we've talked about the progression and the similarities through the first season and a half that Mitchell has had with the great Billy Malone, who, when he finished a couple of years ago, was the greatest passer, most prolific passer in Lone Star Conference history. Mitch, at 27 touchdowns this year, is now tied for 6th all-time in terms of the best seasons of throwing touchdown passes with Malone in Malone's sophomore year.
Yeah, I mean, he's made a huge jump. I mean, he's going back to last year. If you look at his numbers, you know, going back to last year in addition to this year, it's pretty amazing. If you put all that into kind of a one-season framework, it's pretty amazing what he's done. But, you know, he's still got a lot to prove, a lot to accomplish, and you know, hopefully he'll continue to work hard.
There are things you see on film that maybe aren't there to the naked eye. One thing that was to my naked eye as I was broadcasting the game, he didn't get sacked very often Saturday against Eastern, but he took a few shots, didn't he?
Yeah, he got hit. He had a little soreness on Sunday, and most of that was his own fault. Just, you know, as far as not seeing things as quickly as he should, blitz and things like that. But I think the thing that every week whatever he's done wrong in the previous game, he's corrected in the following game, and so that's a sign of a player who's humble, who's hungry, and wants to continue to get better. I think he'll continue to do well on those things.
Mitchell Gale now 27 touchdowns, just one interception. And your defense, Coach, I mean, the last couple of games, especially in the first half, shutting down the opponent, an opponent who had had some success in each of the last 2 weeks in their previous game. You forced 10 punts to this seemingly unstoppable Eastern offense.
Yeah, they did a great job. They have for the last couple of weeks, and we need them to. We need that momentum going into today's game. I mean, Angelo's offense is prolific, and our defense playing with some confidence right now, and they got to continue to do that.
Okay, so 53-14 the final. When we come back, another edition of Washington's Post, and Brandon has more from the JMC Network newsroom. Coming back with the Chris Thomsen Show in just a moment.
Catching up with Abilene Christian running back, not Corey Driscoll. Running back Reggie Brown, he's in here getting rehab. Reggie, tell everybody what it's like to get rehab. What's like a daily schedule? How often do you come in here?
I come in twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. Rehab is just a tough grind, trying to make it through the day.
Okay, and what's the hardest part about rehab? So I know you say you do it twice a day, but what's the hardest part about it?
It's really like just getting through the pain part. Pain there's a lot of pain involved in it, but after you get through the pain, it be cruel breeze to the end.
All right, so do you have like a favorite or least favorite like rehab technique or something that make you do when you're rehabbing?
Ooh, squatting and bending your leg, doing like wild slides, trying to get the range of motion back.
So anything involving the knee, huh?
Yeah.
I got you. Okay, well then what makes you keep going? Because I know it sounds hard. You got to be in here twice a day, almost every day, right?
Yeah.
And so what makes you keep going? What makes you want to keep going?
Just getting back on the field, joining the team again.
All right, and I'm guessing you're expecting to hit the field maybe stronger than you came out there?
Yeah, way stronger, 10 times better.
All right, cool. Looking forward to having you back. Appreciate it, and keep grinding. If you ever need a hug, there's a guy to ask. Corey Driscoll. This is the Washington Post, and we'll catch y'all later.
Thanks, Kevin. Now let's head on up to the JMC Network newsroom for a look at what's going on around the rest of the ACU sports world.
Welcome to the JMC Network Sportscast. I'm your host, Austin Gwynn.
And I'm Kristen Goodspeed, here to give you a look at what's happening on and off the field.
A couple of former ACU stars showed some of what they learned here on the pro field last week. All three former Wildcats in the NFL had big games on Sunday. Chicago receiver Johnny Knox caught his first touchdown pass of the year, while fellow Bear cornerback Danielle Manning got his first pick. Bengals running back Bernard Scott also had a season high in yardage with 1 carry for 14 yards, 5 catches for 43 yards, and also returned 5 kicks for 110 yards.
The ACU soccer team kept a busy schedule this last week. Last Friday in San Angelo, the Wildcats beat Angelo State 3-0. Ashley Holton, one of the Lone Star Conference leaders in goals, knocked in her 14th of the season. With an assist by Holton, freshman Andrea Carpenter added her 15th goal of the season. On Sunday, the Wildcats traveled to San Antonio to face Incarnate Word. Against the Cardinals, Kristen Cavallo scored a late goal to give ACU a 1-0 victory. The Wildcats have now won a record 13 games this season, including an 8-game winning streak. The Wildcats wrap up the regular season next weekend with a pair of road games at Texas A&M Commerce on Friday and Texas Women's on Sunday afternoon.
The power at the top of the Lone Star Conference volleyball standings may be starting to shift. With 2 more wins last week, ACU is still tied atop the LSC standings with a West Texas team that has seen more than their usual share of non-conference losses. Despite 2 dominating sweeps this past weekend against East Central and Southeastern Oklahoma, the Wildcats fell in the top 25 rankings, dropping 1 spot to number 21. The Wildcats are still unbeaten in conference play and have only 3 total losses on the year. The Wildcats have 2 more matches away from Moody before hosting West Texas on November 24th.
For the JMC Network, I'm Kristen Goodspeed.
And I'm Austin Gwynn. May the sports be with you.
Every player loves watching the big hits or big plays he had in the game. At ACU, the job of putting the best highlights together each week is Franklin Hughes. Here's Ryan with more.
I emailed the coach this offseason and asked him if there was any positions for a video assistant, and he emailed back and said yes, and I hooked up with Coach Walker, and he showed me what they needed and what they wanted to be done, and it was just something that I thought it was a good opportunity for me to kind of build my portfolio and give me a chance, to be around the football team. I shoot practices in the games. Me and Deron Montgomery shoot the games. I shoot the wide shot, and he shoots the end zone shot. And after the games, I take the video, and I contact the Optimists, and they let me use some of their video as well. And I put together, try to find the feel of the game and try to find the best highlights, and then try to get everybody involved, as many people as I can, with players and shots of good blocks and good tackles, and try to find the good music that fits it. And they present the highlight to the team the Saturday of the game. So usually at a meeting in the morning or in the afternoon, the team gets together and they watch it. And so far it's been a pretty good hit, so they've enjoyed it quite well. One of the tools or the way that they're going to use this is the coaches have talked about using it as a recruiting tool to send them out and show recruits, hey, this is what we're about. This is how our team is. This is how we play. We play with fire. We play with passion, and it's fun. And I think it's evident by watching the videos that you see the players are having fun and they're trying hard and they're working hard and they're just dominating. And I think that's going to help in recruiting in the future. And that's one of the ways the coaches want to use it.
When we come back on the Chris Thomsen Show, we'll take a look at standings from around the Lone Star Conference, and we'll preview the showdown with Angelo State. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. Take a look at the Lone Star Conference standings through 8 weeks of the season. There's ACU at 8-0, 7-0 in the Lone Star Conference, 4-0 in the Lone Star Conference South. They're just 1 loss behind ACU, Texas A&M, Kingsville, and West Texas A&M. Coach, Kingsville with a narrow victory over Tarleton last week, 13-10, and West Texas A&M, an impressive win at home against a previous 1-loss team in Midwestern State, 42-29, in a game that really wasn't even that close.
Yeah, it looked like West Texas really bounced back from the loss they had at Kingsville. It shows a lot about their team, and they got up on them quick and then put them away. It was didn't look like a close game at all. So, shows the strength of their team.
ACU takes on West Texas A&M November 6th. But today, Coach, let's talk about Angelo State. Last week, they snapped a 4-game losing streak, and really each of the 4 games they've lost have either been to a top 10 team in the nation or just a really close loss at the very end, or in some cases both. 3-4 on the season. We talked about the rivalry and what it means. I don't know that you've played a team yet this year with more explosive playmakers. What do you think about Angelo State?
We've played some teams that have the same amount of playmakers, but Angelo is right there in that category. I mean, offensively they got a guy that at quarterback that's a record setter. I mean, I saw some record he had broken yesterday, and it was like, wow. I mean, this guy's a legit long-term success over a long period of time, and we've seen him. We've played against him. He's good. He's really good, and he's got some weapons. They also use those guys in the kicking game, and that's really where they've gained some advantages in the kickoff return and the punt return game. Every time, almost every game you turn on, they're either scoring a touchdown or they're putting their offense in great field position. So you combine their great offense with that great field position, it makes it tough. It puts a lot of pressure on your defense, and that's going to be a big key for us is just the kicking game and being able to contain those guys and try to keep them around their own 30 because people hadn't been able to do that all year.
Well, 5 of their 7 games they have scored they've gotten points from some unit other than the offense, special teams or defense. Markeith Jones and Alvin Johnson each with 4 interceptions.
Yeah, Coach, you just talked about it with the special teams. What do you guys specifically have to do to be able to contain their guys in the return game?
Well, their punt return game, they put 2 guys back there, and they're both explosive guys. They've both ripped us in the past and on some return stuff. They put them both back there. They run reverses and they run fake reverses. So if you got any advice on how to stop that, I need it now, because I mean, we've been working on it all week and we got a plan, but it's still, you know, did he hand it off or did he not? You know, and it's tough. And then in the kickoff return game, I mean, they hit West Texas on a punt return on a reverse, and it was just a walk-in. Nobody touched the guy. In the kick return game, they're out across midfield numerous times, and I think they've got either 1 or 2 for touchdowns. So they're legit, and we got to find a way to slow them down.
Well, they have the one kickoff return for a touchdown, Dakari Petrakonis, who's their terrific sophomore wide receiver. But they have, like, for example, an 80-yard kickoff return that didn't go necessarily for a touchdown. This really is, though, kind of a strength-on-strength matchup, isn't it? Because if any unit on your team, with the exception of maybe 1/4 of one game this year, it's been not just your return teams, but it's been your punt and kickoff coverage teams that have been successful.
Kickoff coverage is, I think we lead the conference in that, and it's been pretty solid for the most part, and it'll get tested. You know, one of the reasons it's been so solid, we get some touchbacks or we get some deep kicks out of Spencer, and we've got to get some of that Saturday. Those touchbacks alleviate a lot of pressure, obviously, off your coverage. But then our net punt is not great. We're middle of the pack in net punting. Mark's third. I think he's around 40 on his average, but our net is not great. We haven't done a great job of coverage in the punt game, and so that's a big concern. Mark's got to get some hang time and allow us some time to get down there, because if you don't do that and they catch it with a little space, you're gonna have some problems.
Finally, Coach, here it is, the last day or the next to last day of October, October 30th. And this is just going to be your 4th home game. It seems like the entire season's been on the road, doesn't it?
It really does, and even the last 2. I mean, they've been away, and it just feels like forever since we played. I guess Midwestern was our last home game, and it just, you know, what I'm hoping and praying is that we can keep winning and get some playoff games at home, because you miss playing at home. Just thinking, you know, back to yesterday on a Friday, you got some time to do some things. You don't feel hurried to get on the road. And it's a lot nicer playing at home. Look forward to a great crowd.
Well, it should be a great game anytime that ACU and Angelo State get together. This will be the 48th meeting. It's the State Farm, now sponsored this year, the State Farm Big Country Concho Valley Shootout. Kickoff at 2 o'clock. We'll have the pregame show on local radio, Mix 92.5 FM at 1:30 Central Daylight Time. And don't forget, the home games, as they've been all year, haven't been many of them, but the home games this year are on Channel 40 here in the Abilene Big Country area, KTES, and you can watch the replay on television of today's ACU Angelo State game. For Coach Thomsen and for Brandon Tripp, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the Chris Thomsen Show. We'll see you at the game today, and then we'll see you next week right here on KTEX.